I'm standing in my kitchen making coffee, and my hands won't stop shaking. Not because I'm old, not because I'm sick, because yesterday I watched my best friend of 54 years take his last breath. And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about life completely shattered. I'm 79 years old. My name is Thomas. And I need to tell you what I learned in that hospital room before it's too late for you to hear it. Robert and I met when we were 25, fresh out of the military, young and stupid, and convinced we had all the time in the world. We built our lives side by side, raised our families on the same street, worked at the same plant, played cards every Thursday night for 5 decades. He was the kind of friend who knew what I was thinking before I said it, the kind who showed up at 2 a.m. when my daughter was in the hospital, the kind you assume will just always be there. 3 months ago, Robert called me. His voice was different, quieter. He said the doctors found something. Stage 4, pancreatic. And just like that, the clock that had been ticking quietly in the background suddenly got very, very loud. We had months, they said. Maybe 6 if we were lucky. We got 11 weeks. I spent every day with him those last weeks. And in those final conversations, stripped of all the noise and distraction of normal life, we talked about things we'd never said out loud. Things men my age were taught to keep buried. And what he told me in that hospital bed, what I saw in his eyes as he was leaving, it changed how I see everything. The first thing Robert said to me, about a week before he died, was this. He said, "Tommy, I spent 50 years worried about all the wrong things." I asked him what he meant, and he told me that he'd spent decades stressed about money, about his job, about what people thought of him, about keeping up, about getting ahead, about all these things that right now, lying in that bed, meant absolutely nothing. He said the house he worked so hard to pay off, the one he was so proud of, it was just a building. The promotions he fought for, the recognition he wanted, nobody even remembered. He said, "I was so busy building a life that looked successful that I forgot to actually live it." And I sat there listening to him, and I realized I did the same thing. We all did. We were taught that being a man meant providing, achieving, never showing weakness. And somewhere along the way, we confused having a good life with looking like we had a good life. Robert told me about all the moments he wished he could go back to. Not the big moments, the small ones. Tuesday nights with his wife watching television, Saturday mornings with his grandkids, the ordinary, unremarkable moments that he'd been too distracted to fully experience because he was thinking about work or bills or whatever problem felt urgent at the time. He said, "I had everything that mattered right in front of me, and I kept looking past it, waiting for something bigger, something better. And now I'm out of time, and I'd give anything for just one more boring Tuesday." That broke something open in me, because I knew exactly what he meant. How many dinners had I sat through, physically present but mentally somewhere else? How many times had my wife tried to tell me something and I'd been half listening, already thinking about the next thing? How many moments with my kids, my grandkids, had I let slip by because I was too busy or too tired or too focused on things that didn't actually matter? The second thing Robert said, and this one haunts me, is that he realized too late that love isn't something you feel, it's something you do. He said he loved his wife deeply, but he spent so much of their marriage assuming she knew that he didn't need to show it, that providing for her was the same as being present with her. He told me that in those final weeks, she sat by his bed every single day, held his hand, read to him, took care of him in ways that required her to see him at his absolute worst. And he said that's when he finally understood what love actually is. It's not the big gestures. It's the 1,000 small acts of showing up when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, when there's nothing in it for you except the chance to be there for someone else. He said, "I wish I'd loved her like that when I still had the time to do something with it." His biggest regret wasn't that he was dying. It was that he'd wasted so much of the time he'd been given not loving the way he should have. And I thought about my own wife, the times I'd taken her for granted, the times I'd prioritized work or hobbies or anything else over just being with her, the times I'd let days go by without really seeing her, really talking to her, really showing her that she was the most important thing in my life. The third thing Robert told me was about fear. He said he'd spent his whole life afraid. Afraid of failure. Afraid of looking weak. Afraid of what people would think. And all that fear had made him small. It had kept him from taking risks, from being vulnerable, from living fully. He said, "Fear makes you think you're protecting yourself. But really, you're just building a prison." He told me about things he'd wanted to do but didn't because he was scared. Trips he didn't take. Conversations he didn't have. Dreams he didn't chase. And now, with death staring him in the face, all that fear seemed ridiculous. He said, "The worst that could have happened was I would have failed or been embarrassed. So what? At least I would have tried. At least I would have lived." In his last days, Robert wasn't afraid anymore. The thing he'd spent his whole life running from was right there in the room with him. And he'd stopped fighting it. And in that acceptance, there was this strange kind of peace. He said death wasn't the enemy. Wasted life was. The day before he died, Robert could barely speak. His body was shutting down. But he grabbed my hand and he pulled me close. And he whispered, "Don't wait, Tommy. Don't wait like I did." I asked him what he meant, even though I already knew. And he said, "Whatever you're putting off, whatever you're too scared to do, whatever you think you have time for later, do it now. Because later runs out faster than you think." He died the next morning. His wife was holding one hand. I was holding the other. And the last thing he did, the very last thing before he closed his eyes, was smile. Not a sad smile, a grateful one. Like even though he was leaving, even though he had regrets, he was thankful for the time he'd had. Thankful for the love he'd experienced. Thankful just to have been here at all. I left that hospital room a different person than I was when I walked in. Because watching someone you love die doesn't just remind you that you're going to die too. It reminds you that you're alive right now. And that's either a gift you use or a gift you waste. I'm 79 years old. Robert was 79. We thought we had more time. We always think we have more time. But time is the one thing you can't earn back. You can't work harder to get more of it. You can't save it up. You just have to use it or lose it. Since Robert died, I've been different. I've been present. Really present. I sit with my wife in the evenings, and I don't look at my phone. I call my kids not because it's a holiday, but because I want to hear their voices. I notice things. The way the light comes through the kitchen window in the morning, the sound of rain on the roof, the feel of my wife's hand in mine. All these small, ordinary things that I'd been too busy to pay attention to for decades. And I've stopped waiting. I'm not waiting for a better time to tell people I love them. I'm not waiting for permission to do the things I've always wanted to do. I'm not waiting to be happy when conditions are perfect. Because conditions are never perfect. And waiting is just another word for wasting. Robert's funeral was last week. The church was packed. Hundreds of people came to pay their respects. And person after person got up and talked about how Robert had impacted their lives. The time he helped them move. The advice he'd given. The way he'd shown up when they needed someone. And I sat there thinking, he had no idea. He spent so much of his life worried that he wasn't enough, that he wasn't making a difference. And he had no idea how many lives he'd touched just by being kind. That's the thing about life. You don't get to see the full picture while you're living it. You don't get to know which moments will matter, which words will be remembered, which small acts of kindness will ripple out in ways you'll never know. You just have to trust that showing up, being present, being kind, that it all matters, even when it doesn't feel like it does. I miss Robert every single day. The house is quieter without him. Thursday nights feel empty. But he gave me something in those final weeks. He gave me clarity. He showed me, in the most brutal way possible, what matters and what doesn't. What matters is the people you love and whether they know it. What matters is the moments you're in and whether you're actually present for them. What matters is whether you're living your life or just performing it. Whether you're chasing what looks impressive or what actually fulfills you. Whether you're letting fear keep you small or letting love make you brave. What doesn't matter is most of the stuff we spend our lives stressed about. The opinions of people who don't really know you. The perfect house or car or career. Being right in arguments you'll forget about in a year. Holding grudges against people who won't be here forever. All the small, petty concerns that feel huge until you're facing something truly huge, and then they dissolve into nothing. I'm 79 years old. I don't know how much time I have left. Could be 20 years. Could be 20 days. Robert thought he had years. He had weeks. None of us know. And that's terrifying. But it's also clarifying. Because when you realize time is limited, you stop wasting it. You stop tolerating things that make you miserable. You stop putting off what matters. You start living like your time is precious. Because it is. If you're listening to this, I have one request. Don't wait for your own hospital room moment to figure this out. Don't wait until someone you love is dying to realize what you should have been doing all along. Look around at your life right now, the people in it, the moments you're living, and ask yourself, am I actually here? Am I present? Am I loving the way I want to be remembered for loving? Because one day, sooner than you think, this will be over. The noise will stop, the chances will run out, and all that will remain is whether you lived fully or whether you just survived. Whether you loved deeply or whether you just got by. Whether you were brave or whether you let fear keep you small. Robert's last words to me were, don't wait. So I'm not. And I'm asking you, begging you, don't wait either. Call someone you love today, not tomorrow, today. Tell them what they mean to you. Spend time with people who matter. Stop postponing joy. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop letting fear or pride or busyness keep you from the life you actually want. Because I'm sitting here at 79, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, the only thing you'll regret is the love you didn't give, the moments you didn't savor, the time you didn't use. Everything else, all the stuff that feels so important right now, it fades. But the love you give, the presence you offer, the kindness you show, that stays. That's what remains when everything else is gone. If this meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more honest conversations about life, loss, and what actually matters. And leave a comment. Tell me, who are you going to call today? What have you been waiting to do? I read every comment. And maybe, in some small way, we can remind each other not to wait, not to waste the time we have, to live like we mean it, while we still can.